On January 20, Donald J. Trump was sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. Already in his first week in office, he announced a record number of executive orders, some which have concrete consequences also for Europe and the Middle East, among them a decision to stop the funding of UNRWA. There was also some announcement, like his plan for Jordan and Egypt to take the Palestinians from Gaza in order to clean out the whole thing, as he put it, and rebuild the Gaza Strip. How will the Trump presidency affect EU-US relations and, in an extension, the future of the Middle East? To discuss this in the studio today in the European Parliament, we have member of the European Parliament, Georgiana Teodorescu.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. From Romania, a member of the European Conservatives and Reformists political group, and among others, of the Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs.
That's true.
Together with European Coalition for Israel founding director, Tomas Sandell. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
We today will discuss the Trump presidency and the ramification for Europe and the Middle East. My name is Yossi Lempkowicz from European Jewish Press and Europe-Israel Press Association. This is the European Report. MEP Teodorescu, there were various surveys showing that Donald Trump has a very low rating in Europe, and we can presume that this is also correct in the European Parliament. But if I have understood it correctly, you are a strong supporter of the 47th president. And you recently hosted a conference in this parliament under the title, Make Europe Great Again. So I would like to have your assessment, how you share about your thoughts on the Trump presidency, as well as the conference you hosted.
Yes, it's true. We hosted actually the second edition of Make Europe Great Again last week in the European Parliament. The first edition took place last year in Bucharest in the Palace of the Parliament. And we decided to bring this year the second edition in the European Parliament on the same days when also the Holocaust remembrance event took place inside the European Parliament, right after the inauguration of the second mandate of President Trump. It was the biggest conservative event that took place in the world right after the inauguration of President Trump's new mandate. And it was a very good opportunity for conservatives from all over the world to meet and to share ideas and ways to work together better in the future in order to fight globalism, neo-Marxist, woke current, and all those things that President Trump is also fighting against. We are very happy that President Trump got re-elected. We supported him also on the first mandate, and of course now even more. And him coming back to Washington, from our point of view, represents a coming back to normality, to common sense, to good old-fashioned traditional values that created the world we are living in. And finally, a stop to all this idiocracy called politically correctness that we live in, unfortunately, and that we have lived in the past. It's time to be bold. It's time to have the courage to fight against the real problems of the world. And President Trump has the courage to do so. So we can only support him and be happy that we have partners within the Republican Party and that we work together to find better ways to cooperate between the United States, Europe, and the rest of the world.
And do you have support in the European Parliament for this kind of
Yes, of course. We represent the conservatives. ECR is a conservative group, and we also had people from the Patriots group, for example, who attended our conference, and also from the Souverainists. There are many people who support President Trump and his measures, his ideas. From what I've noticed, even people from the other side, like from the progressives, have started to change opinion now that he's reinstalled in Washington.
Tomas Sandell, how do you think the Trump presidency will affect the work of your organization, the European Coalition for Israel, does here in Brussels and also in the United Nations? For that matter?
Well, Yossi, as you recall, the 45th presidency was very successful when it comes to relations with the Middle East, the Abraham Accords, the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem, so on and so forth. So needless to say, from what we see, the people that he has put in place in his new administration, we can expect pretty much of the same and even better. The challenges, of course, are greater today, but of course, as a friend of Israel, as a friend of the Jewish people, I don't think anyone can be other than hopeful that this is a great opportunity, again, to redraw the map of the Middle East. And I think you have to be as bold or crazy or whatever, however you want to define the 47th president, to really see breakthroughs. And as we saw with the Abraham Accords, what he did was something that was always told it could never be done. There could never be separate peace agreements with Israel's Arab neighbors. Nevertheless, he proved the opposite. So I think today, when we look at some of the amazing ideas that I understand you will want to bring up later in the program, I think if it ever is going to happen, it would have to happen with Trump in the White House.
And you mentioned some new members of his administration, like Marco Rubio, who is the new foreign secretary,
yes.
Very pro-Israel.
Yes.
And we know that tomorrow President Trump will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, first foreign leader to be invited to Washington.
Yes.
So it's a great opportunity, I think.
Exactly.
MEP Teodorescu, why is that? This is also always a question, important question. Why is that Trump and the United States in general is more popular in Central and Eastern Europe than in Western Europe?
Because we are conservatives in Central and Eastern Europe. We share the same values with the Republican Party. And the western part of Europe is more progressive. Let's take the case of France, for example. We are very different than France in the Eastern and Central Europe. From the point of religion, from the point of values that we defend. So that's why we are more similar to the United States and especially to President Trump agenda and portfolio. Yeah.
Tomas Sandell, based on the first weeks in office since 20 of January, what are your comments on the new U.S. administration and on President Trump? I just mentioned in my introduction this idea of President Trump regarding Gaza, you know, to take the population to Jordan and Egypt as maybe as a first step before rebuilding the Gaza Strip and have a new administration in Gaza, not the same as Hamas.
Yeah.
What's your take on this?
I think that's a very interesting idea. We have to remember that Trump and Kushner, for that matter, they're real estate people. and they look at prime property. I mean, who would not want to build something in Gaza on the Mediterranean? If we are looking at what could be created if there was only the goodwill, Gaza is a much better location than Dubai, than Singapore, or any other of these microstates which have proven to be so successful. I think that as unlikely as the suggestion sounds, I think it might be more or less the only option, that in order to create a new Gaza, you need to relocate most of the current population. And I think it's only right that the Arab Peninsula take their share of responsibility. I think this would have to come at the same time as there's a de-radicalization process. And as you know, Yossi, in countries like the United Arab Emirates, the other Gulf states, even Saudi Arabia, there is very little tolerance for radicalism in the shape and form of Hamas. And when you look at that region, even Al Jazeera, Muslim Brotherhood, they're banned altogether. So I think there would be no better place for the Palestinian community to really be de-radicalized. And then over time, re-enter Gaza, but only when they really have come to the phase that they want to live in peace and coexistence. So maybe this is just as unlikely and out of the box as the Abraham Accords, but maybe this is the solution.
Yeah, and of course, the Jordan and Egypt until now refused the idea, but Trump is very sticking to the idea. He said that they will accept at the end, because the US is also a big financier of these two countries. So he's sticking to the idea.
Yeah.
So same question to you, MEP Teodorescu. How would you rate the 2 first weeks of President Trump? Have there been surprises, new surprises so far, or is it what you expected from him?
Well, he acts exactly as we expected him to. Trump is Trump. It's no surprise for anybody that he's being bold and that he's doing exactly what he promised to do during his campaign. He's not an ordinary politician. He's very different from the Democrats, for example, in the United States. And he has the courage to put Americans first, which any leader should do for his own people and for his own country. But Trump has this ability to do so. For example, I particularly liked and applaud his initiative to say that officially in the United States there are only 2 sexes, female and male. Since we are conservatives, we believe the same from the biological point of view, if you want to. And that he took the decision to forbid any hormonal treatments to reverse sexuality for minors. This is something that shouldn't happen to minors, and it did during the Democrats, and it does also in other countries of the world, including in European countries. So we are fighting against that. We believe that until you reach the age to be able to drive or to drink alcohol, you cannot take decisions that could, influence your body forever, like changing your sexuality with a hormonal treatment. Also, his decision to declare all the drug cartels as terrorism organizations. That's also a very good decision, because many of the drug cartels actually finance the terrorists from other areas of the world, such as the Muslim terrorists, who receive funding also from the drug cartels. Also, in what concerns his fight against the deep state, we have noticed that this time he managed to appoint people near him who are very good professionals and very decided, very strong-willed, who will terminate everything that the Democrats try to do against him, all the criminal case files invented in order to stop him from running again. So he has the courage and the ability to change many things, and we are willing to support him in his decisions, of course.
Thomas Sandell, MEP Teodorescu, mentioned this idea, America first. But because of that, Trump seems to have a very low interest in the European Union at all. It prefers to have relations, bilateral relations with the different countries. We have seen that neither European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen nor High Representative for Foreign Affairs Kaja Kallas were invited at the inauguration in Washington. How should the European Union finally engage with Trump? There is a lot of discussion on this these last days.
Yeah, I think two things which are essential for me. First is, of course, that it will take a lot of humility from the EU side to acknowledge, which I do see that, including our own President Stubb of Finland has acknowledged, where the many areas where Trump was right and the EU were wrong, starting with the need to increase defense funding, starting with the warnings about Russia not being too dependent on Russian natural gases, even warning about the Nord Stream, warning about the influence of China. He was ridiculed at the time, and no one thought anything of these warnings. Again, to come back to the Abraham Accords, he did something that Europeans said this will never going to work. It did work. So it will take some humility to come back and say, well, listen, you were actually right, and meet halfway if you wish. The other thing is that I think that Ursula von der Leyen made a strategic mistake when she excluded the ECR group from the negotiations about how to divide the power after the EU elections. Because ECR
she preferred Renew, right?
She preferred Renew and to continue with the left
Green Deal
EPP,
yeah.
and partly because of the Green Deal. But I think if she had acted differently and given more space for the Italian Prime Minister, for example, the EU could be in a better position to engage with Trump today. Of course, we can't go back in time, but I think some humility in engaging with the Americans will do good. Of course, I'm a European, I'm a Finn, so I'm not saying that we don't have reasons to be worried, especially when it comes to the trade, to the tariffs. And I think secondly, of course, what everyone are waiting to see how things will end up in Ukraine. But I think for the moment, it's the question of the future of free trade.
MEP Teodorescu, the question just asked Thomas Sandell is even more important to you. You are a member of the European Parliament. How should the European Union, including the European Parliament, engage with the new US administration?
Well, first of all, we should have a very clear position to be oriented towards the United States and not towards other parts of the world. We have clearly more in common with the United States than China could ever possibly dream about having in common with Europe, for example. So our position should be one of openness and cooperation with the United States, because in the end we fight for the same values and against the same enemies. We fight for peace. We want to have a better world, to live in peace. We fight against terrorism, which is a plague in our society, and we are all we have this duty to fight and to eradicate it. Trump does it. We also try to do it in Europe and Israel and other countries of the world who fight against terrorism. And of course, we have many people here who can deal and interact directly with President Trump. For example, Madam Georgiana Meloni, who has a close connection with President Trump. We have Mateusz Morawiecki, who is the former Prime Minister of Poland, who now is the president, the chairman of ECR party. And many other conservative leaders from European countries, such as the president of AUR in Romania, George Simeon, and other people who work for this goal of bringing conservatives back to power in Europe and building a stronger Europe, a Europe of nations, of strong nations, and to finally eliminate globalism, which wasn't a bright idea in the end.
So the US is European Union's best partner in the world.
Yes, yes, it should be. It should be, and we have to work to.
I have also a question to
Please.
both of you. You mentioned that the conference you organized was at the same time as the International Holocaust Remembrance
Yes.
Day. And there was a ceremony here in the Parliament in
Indeed.
the plenary session. And we saw what happened with Polish MEP that started shouting, making a link between this ceremony and Gaza. What's your thoughts on this?
It was a very ugly moment to disrupt the silent minute that we took for the Holocaust victims. I cannot find the words to express the lack of diplomacy and, from my point of view, lack of education to ruin such a moment. Even if you have the same religion or the same belief as Israel, or you don't, it doesn't mean that you have to spit on the memory of 6 million people who died during the World War II. So it's something that you simply don't do. I totally disrespect such a way of behavior, especially from a member of the European Parliament, because we are here in an institution. We were elected by the Europeans to represent Europeans' best interests. And from my point of view, it is in the Europe's best interest to have very good relations with the United States, to have very good relations with Israel. So we don't live alone in the world, isolated by the rest of the world. We are all together. So, no, I cannot find respect for that. And in what concerns the position of the European Parliament, I would like more to see that the respect shown during the Holocaust commemoration would happen every day, not only during the Holocaust commemoration day. Because, unfortunately, there is a lot of hypocrisy in these European institutions. Once a year, we remember, we are sorry, we are respectful, but when it comes to voting, when it comes to stopping UNRWA, when it comes to really support Israel, people tend to forget. So,
Tomas, Sandell, the same question to you.
Yeah, I can only reiterate, even coming back to your earlier question about transatlantic relationships, I think it's important to realize that it's like, when you're playing football, there are only two teams. You can't say, well, we're Europe, so we're neither teams. And it's true that it's democracy, rule of law, and our values and principles that are really uniting the US and Europe, and there's no other way than sticking together. Coming back to what happened here in Europe, European Parliament, of course it's completely shameful. And luckily he is a loner from what I understand, and I would question his mental status as well. So it's unfortunate. I think obviously the reaction from the president was the only right one to point at the door. On that note, as you may know, I was in Poland myself last week, where I had the privilege of meeting with the president of Poland, Andrzej Duda, a real friend of the Jewish people, met with family members of the hostages. And as Georgiana just said, I think we need to remember that it's not only the 27th of January that matters. If you go and pay tribute for an hour, it's all those other 365 days that really matters. And here I think the Polish president has been a good example of someone who really cares about Israel and the Jewish people.
I have a last question, but I need a short answer
Short
because we are short in time. My question is, do you think that President Trump has changed since his first presidency in 2017 until 2021?
Yes, I believe he will be stronger now and bolder than he was before, even though he didn't lack boldness in his first mandate. But now he has a very good team with him, and he will manage to destroy the deep state, and he will manage to make some serious change in the world, not only in the United States. So.
Tomas Sandell, the same question.
I think he looks younger and more energetic this time. I don't understand where he gets all the energy from. I feel like an old man.
He has a very beautiful wife.
Also that. But so do I. But I would say that I think the biggest change is really picking the right cabinet members. What was the greatest mistake last time was, of course, that he was new in politics. He chose people that later on would stab his back, would write books where they discredited him. And even, as you may remember, this anonymous...
And he fired some of them.
And he did. And this anonymous columnist in New York Times who said that, listen, I'm in the administration, we are coordinating from the inside to prevent him. This was the type of administration or part of it, whereas now, as you just mentioned, he has people that are 100% loyal to him, and I think this way he will get a lot of work done. And I wish him, like we all do, I think the whole world wish him all the best.
This brings us to an end of this edition of the European Report. I would like to thank again MEP Georgiana Teodorescu.
Thank you so much.
And the founding director of the European Coalition for Israel, Tomas Sandell, for joining this program. To our readers, as always, if you like our program, please feel free to share the YouTube link with your friends, with your colleagues, and with others. My name is Yossi Lempkowicz, and you just watched the European Report. See you again next month.